how the U.S. economy works, and why it affects your business when the U.S. Federal Reserve raises interest rates by 0.25%. A small bakery owner in Memphis pays more for her business loan, and she had absolutely nothing to do with that decision. That is the reality of operating a business inside an economy. Decisions made in rooms you will never enter, by people you will never meet, about numbers you may never fully understand land directly on your bottom line. Your rent goes up. Your supplier costs increase. Your customers spend less. And if you do not understand why these things are happening, you cannot respond to them intelligently. Today we are going to demystify the U.S. economy in plain language, how it works, who controls what, and most importantly, what you as a small business owner need to watch and why. Welcome to the Plain Business Network. I am Obioma, an accounting consultant who advises small businesses, and part of that work is helping business owners understand the economic environment they are operating in so they stop being surprised by it. By the time you are through this video, you will understand the 3 economic forces that affect every small business in America, and you will know what to watch every month to stay ahead of them. Drop your name and your city in the comments. Let me see who is in the room for this session. If you have been with us all day, you are building a foundation that most business owners never get. If you are joining fresh right now, this session is one of the most important in the entire 90-day program. Here is your comment question for today. When you hear the words Federal Reserve or interest rates on the news, do you change the channel or do you pay attention? Type change or pay attention in the comments right now. By the end of this session, every single one of you who type change is going to become a pay attention person, because you are going to understand exactly what those words mean for your money. Most small business owners treat economic news like weather in a country they are not visiting. It is happening somewhere, but it does not feel relevant. So they ignore the Federal Reserve announcements. They skip past the inflation reports. They do not read the jobs data. And then 6 months later, they cannot understand why their supplier just raised prices, why their business loan repayment just increased, or why their customers are suddenly spending less. The economy did not sneak up on them. They simply were not watching. Let us define the 3 forces you need to understand. First, inflation. Inflation is the rate at which prices across the economy are rising. When inflation is high, everything costs more: your supplies, your rent, your utilities. The U.S. measures this through something called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. Second, interest rates. These are set by the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States. When interest rates go up, borrowing money becomes more expensive. Business loans cost more. Credit cards charge more. Consumers buy less on credit. Third, GDP. Gross domestic product is the total value of everything the U.S. economy produces. When GDP is growing, businesses generally do better. When it shrinks, that is a recession, businesses feel the squeeze. Here is how these 3 forces play out in a real small business. In 2022 and 2023, U.S. inflation hit levels not seen in 40 years. The Federal Reserve responded by raising interest rates aggressively. For a small restaurant owner in Chicago, this meant 3 simultaneous hits. Food ingredient costs rose because suppliers were paying more for everything. The business loan she took to renovate her space now had higher monthly repayments because rates had risen, and her customers started dining out less because their own household costs had gone up. She did not cause any of those problems, but she felt all 3 of them. The business owners who survived that period were the ones who saw it coming early enough to adjust their pricing, reduce unnecessary costs, and conserve cash before the pressure arrived. Think of the U.S. economy like the Harmattan season in West Africa. When the Harmattan is coming, the signs are there weeks before it arrives. The sky changes color, the air gets drier, certain birds behave differently. The farmer who reads those signs prepares early. They store water. They protect their crops. They adjust. The farmer who ignores the signs loses their harvest to a season they could have prepared for. Economic indicators are your Harmattan signs. The CPI report, the Fed announcement, the jobs data, these are the signals. Read them and you prepare. Ignore them and the season finds you unprepared. Bookmark 3 websites today and check them once a week. The Federal Reserve at Federal Reserve for interest rate news. The Bureau of Labor Statistics at BLS, Gov for inflation and jobs data. And the U.S. Small Business Administration at SBA, Gov for policy updates that directly affect small businesses. That is your economic dashboard. It costs nothing and it takes 10 minutes a week. Marcus from Chicago says, I never connected interest rates to my small business before. I thought that was only for big banks. Marcus, you are not alone in thinking that, and that gap in understanding is exactly why this session exists. Interest rates affect the cost of every loan, every credit card, and every financing arrangement in the economy. If you ever borrow money for your business, interest rates are your business. James from Dallas says, so should I be taking out loans now before rates change again? James, that is a sharp question, and the honest answer is it depends on what the loan is for and whether the return on that investment exceeds the cost of borrowing. We are going to cover business debt strategy in an upcoming session. But the fact that you are thinking about timing already puts you ahead of most. Sandra from London says, Obioma, I am based in the UK. Does U.S. economic news still matter to my business? Sandra, absolutely, and here is why. If your clients are in the U.S., their spending power is directly affected by the U.S. economy. If you invoice in dollars, exchange rate movements, which are driven partly by U.S. interest rates, affect what you actually receive in pounds. The U.S. economy is the largest in the world. Its movements create waves that reach every shore. Understanding it is not optional for anyone doing business with American clients. You are learning things today that most business school programs do not teach in plain language. Stay in the room. The Federal Reserve held interest rates steady at its most recent meeting, signaling a pause in rate changes through mid-2026. Borrowing costs are not going up right now, which means business loans and credit lines are holding at their current rates for the foreseeable future. If you have been considering a business loan for equipment, expansion, or working capital, this is a relatively stable window to explore your options before the next rate movement. The economic dashboard setup, open your browser right now and bookmark these three sites: Federal Reserve BLS, Gov, and SBA, Gov. Set a recurring reminder every Monday morning to spend 10 minutes reading the latest updates on each one. Why it matters: the business owners who see economic changes coming adjust before the impact arrives. The ones who do not see it coming absorb the full damage without preparation. That is your plain business move for today. Recap line. Today we covered the three economic forces: inflation, interest rates, and GDP that every small business owner in America needs to understand. And we set up a simple weekly system to stay informed without being overwhelmed. In our next and final session of the day, we are going to talk about 5 side hustles you can start this week with zero capital, and we are going to look at the real numbers behind each one so you know exactly what you are getting into before you start. Subscribe to the Plain Business Network and share this session with one person who always says they do not understand the economy. After today, neither excuse holds. I am Obioma. Real money, real business, plain language. See you next session.